your horn a little bit.
Yeah.
You figured, despite being in the basement of a restaurant or of an apartment complex, you had the skills, you had the ingredients.
Yeah, I mean, nobody
happen.
paid attention to what we were doing for like 5 years. So we just, at one point, we threw our hands up and we are like, we're just going to cook and do hospitality as at the highest level. Like people, early adopters were like chefs. That was the cool thing. Like I was going to open a place and my dream was like, I hope cooks want to eat here.
Yeah.
I hope the industry wants to come. And that was a huge focus of what we were trying to do.
So weren't necessarily banking on college students. But
Yeah, no.
Chris
No, there
obviously
wasn't.
had a taste
And
for
still
food,
to this
but-
day, I think it's going to change slightly. You know what's happening in Boulder right now, but no, that was and our target market was like, yeah, there were diners coming in from Frosca, but what happened is like, you know, the kitchen. It was one of the first people to be like, you got to go out to this apartment complex. There's these kids cooking.
Yeah.
We don't know who they are, but just go out there and see. And they got people, you know, and crossing 28th Street in Boulder, if you live downtown, is like that's like going to Louisville or something. You're like, you don't
unless you're going to the reservoir.
Yeah, unless you don't,
like,
you don't go past 28th. And, you know, so we had these diners coming out there and they were just mad. You couldn't find the place. They were driving around in circles. They would walk in just angry. Yeah, no. And still now, Uber drivers get lost every day coming there still. Like, it's crazy. But, you know, that kind of, you know, but it was beautiful, too. Like, when we started to fill up and we started to get some of those accolades and stuff, like, we were just so grateful at that point. We'd look around our dining room and we're like, no one walked in off the street here. Like, every guest we earned. Somebody
told somebody, and they were like,
yeah,
all right, yeah, I'm going to come.
It's not Pearl Street. You're not like, hey, let's check out this new spot. You're not walking.
Not
everyone came there with intention.
Yeah.
I remember the
beautiful.
oysters to this day that I had there.
Yeah. There's like, there's like little, you know, things that started to hit like that. And all I knew is we were just playing the survival game. We started with lunch. We cut lunch. We just did everything possible, and we're still pivoting to make it work. Still to this day, but I love it, and I love that it's still there, and I love cooking there. Like if I didn't love it so much, I would have just been like shutting the doors. But like it's still there, and if I got put on a pizza shift tonight, I'd be like stoked. I'd be like, I'm working pizza tonight at Basta, and I love it. You know that I love that restaurant.
You're smiling even just talking.
No,
about
I love it. Like
I'm excited.
I love it. Like, and I don't think the story's done with that restaurant. And we've had the weirdest experiences. Like, forget about the chef award type shit. Like that was cool, but every time I got that, I was like, I didn't understand it because and we talked about this. I was trying to be a chef or a better cook or whatever, but I'm still playing hospitality game in my mind. The only reason I was going to do all that stuff, to cook better, to do all that, is because that was my form of service, and I felt like if I became a better cook, then I could serve people better. It's true. I know that sounds stupid, and I don't care about, I'm not trying to play this, humble, blah, 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 number one, most humble stuff. We used to joke about that all the time. We're number one, but we're most humble. There's just these rules that we started
making. We have
making.
that same feeling about being the number one Denver podcast. So we're not nearly as humble as you, but you take it with stride better.
Yeah, you got to really do it first, then become humble. I keep that's a new thing. I'm like, until you do something, people have to realize, I have to do a lot more, and then I have to be humble about it. I can't just be like, hey, I'm a super humble guy. But I was getting that cook award, and I was like, this. It almost didn't make sense to me.
It's about fucking time.
No, it wasn't. It was never like that. It wasn't
and now
like
it's
that. No, it wasn't. At the time, I was like, I seriously, and it sucks because
we'll throw this on
because
fire?
So many cooks work so hard,
right?
And they would want that, and I was just like, and you can't say that out loud. You can't be like, oh, I got 5280 Chef of the Year, and I'm like, it's kind of accidental, or it wasn't where my mind was at. I wasn't like trying to be the best chef when people, like I said, they cooks wake up and they're like, I'm gonna be the best chef ever, right? Or I'm gonna dedicate, and we're all grinding. I still grind 80 hours, 100. You you just hit all those hours and you do all that stuff and you're living that life. And mine was like purely wrapped around this like experience type thing. And I think that's why our spaces kind of speak to that experiential part, because I wasn't just like, the food had to be great. The food had to be great.
Right, you're in a
like,
weird
that's the
apartment
rule, like,
building.
If the food wasn't good, then, and that's what I said, I had to like continue that. Make the food better, make the food better, make the food better. And so I had to so I kept on staging, I kept on traveling, I kept on growing my skill set. I kept sending cooks to stage, and I was like, it was just that's where I was at. And Basta's been there, and we do a couple things in between there, and now we're at Wolf's Tailor, but I
was going to do a really cool segue for that, but you continue.
No, but the second part of that is like you have to figure out the business, and that's like, anybody can open a restaurant, right? If you have money, if you have like a lot of money, you can't like just go buy a doctrine and be like, I'm going to do surgery tomorrow.
No,
I'm going to perform surgery on somebody.
Yeah, they
like,
don't. That's not going to happen.
You can't do that with money, really. You have to like figure out how to. So, but with the restaurant industry, you're like, I really think it would be sweet to open a bakery, and I have some money. Yeah. You can do that, and 2 out of 3 restaurants fell. So that failure rate, and I go to school for business or whatever in hospitality. I've got all this experience and knowledge, and it doesn't like. Thank God, because like it does somehow, that path versus like the culinary school path, I think is why we were able to survive and make it work. But we got another like lesson in that, like we opened Cart Driver Denver. That was an incredible experience. That was like our first time to branch out there, because I was like, if I don't open something right now from Basta, then like if I don't do something, we're gonna go under. Yeah. Like basically, okay.
I like that.
I've got to make a move. We got to expand to make sure that like we need something else, right? And so the cart driver idea, it just that was born out of like, again, the sort of survival necessity type thing, right?
So real quick though, like talking about food and stuff, in all your restaurants you kind of have the wood burning dealio going on. Is that just master? From Italy?
Are you the master of
I've learned a lot about I've learned a lot about wood fire. I fell in love with it in Italy, but and that's, I didn't get to make pizza, but some guys were like, this is how you work the fire, and they started showing me some tricks with the fire. And then the in LA, while I was working at a 2 Michelin star Providence, amazing restaurant, Michael Cimarusi, one of the best. Short time that I was there, probably one of the biggest impacts between him and Quinn on my food and who I am actually as a business owner, a person, really. Those guys are incredible mentors, but during that time, I was at $10 an hour. I'm working at the best restaurant in LA, and working fish position in a fish restaurant, it's like $10 an hour, right? That's the game, and you just put in the time and whatever. So during the day, that's where I really started consulting, working on a lot of projects, and we still do a lot of consulting today. But one of the places I consulted for was a Naples family. They knew I'd worked in Naples, and I didn't know how to do pizza, but they were like, "We have pizza makers. We just need you to like write the menu, be there, run the kitchen." So I wrote a menu. I knew all the pizzas of Naples at that point, and I go in and I'm doing this stuff, and everybody's like, again, oh, you learned pizza in Naples. I'm like, no, I learned from like Hispanic dudes in LA. Like that's where I learned pizza. Like,
I mean, but at the same time, like you've gotten a little bit of here, and like our friend Merlin has said, like if especially in the food industry, if you spend more than a year in one place, then you're almost not necessarily wasting your time, but you are, because you could be learning from someone else. So like you've been able to pull from Quinn, and then you were able to pull from Michael, the Italians. And then,
I don't recommend that path for every cook. You know what I mean? Like it's not a great path. Like I could have stayed at Providence for 10 years. There's cooks there that are like the current chef de cuisine, Tristan, Amy. I mean, you go through this list of people, but they've been there forever. They followed Michael, and they've been there forever. Like it's a type of kitchen that I could have spent, but I just like I was already to this point. It's just to this point where I was like to this age where I was like I've got to go do and open my own thing and try to give it a shot. And so that was like very different than, and the girl that I was like went to see there, I married, and
shout out wife,
and then
got to hear a shout out. Maybe a list.
And then we went to Puerto Rico, nice. Surfed, drank a little bit.
What's your beer?
Had a baby.
Beer of choice?
Had some tequila there and had a baby.
Been there. Well,
and
the tequila, not the baby thing.
I was like,
there could be one out there.
This is going to turn into like a family discussion, right? Yeah.
No,
so that like after our daughter Somi was born in LA, we were like, let's give this restaurant thing a shot. That's what
solid.
Took us out there. Yeah.
So we opened Bossa, did that damn thing, and now
we've done Cart and Driver, and now we're on to the. I mean, I'll go ahead and say it. This is a dope ass location. So we had the privilege of watching y'all kind of go through your set before you open the restaurant.
Yeah,
you got to hear the
pre-service.
wines.
Yeah.
Do some family supper.
Yeah. Drink a highball.
Yeah. By the way, fire. And I want to talk about that, but I want to start with the ambiance. So for our listeners at home, they do reserve seats at the bar as well as for walk-ins. So if you are in the Sunnyside, or if you're even in the, the Highlands neighborhood, if Avanti just has shitty food per usual, then come on up down the street to dank-ass food. But it's also a perfect date location.
That's a great plug.
How did you do that ambiance? Like,
I like... For one, we're in a neighborhood that is one of the like everything in Denver has a name now, like Highlands and Rhino, and this is everything.
Low, high.
So
high,
Sunnyside
low.
is a real thing. Like there's so much history in this neighborhood with like you can drive around and still see bocce ball courts and Italian, the immigration, and actually the house that one of the other reasons we came back from LA is Erica, who is a native. Colorado Springs. Shout out. Sea Springs. I'm married to a native, so I'm transplant married to a native. Her grandmother came over here from Wales and lived on Pecos, like a mile from this location, and lived in that house for 50 years. And she was getting ill, and we were like, we got to come back. Her mom was here. We're gonna have help with this like new baby child, and try to open a restaurant.
Small human. That America likes nowadays.
Yeah. So small human, and that like all of a sudden we're living on Pecos in Denver, and this house of 50 years. But this neighborhood, and a lot of the materials even of this restaurant were influenced by like that basement because they lived there for 50. You collect stuff, right? Yeah. And you see like plywood and you see pegboard and you see all this stuff. And so when it came to like thinking about how we were going to make this ambiance and this vibe work for all this stuff, one, it has to be inclusion, right? I want to like include everybody in it. And I didn't want to build... First, I hate like spending a ton of money on restaurants. Like, I don't know how restaurants...
Should have found a cool
I learned how to be...
building.
Yeah. I'm thrifty. Like, I feel like while you're there, I'm kind of thrifty. I'm cheap. I find cheaper locations and, but like with this, these materials, like it walks in and this restaurant feels like, like more than what it is. But, so the pegboard and the plywood and the stuff, it was more to like add to the neighborhood rather than push out. Like you said, gentrification. I was like, dude, we were like we're buying so much Broncos gear from across the street. We're at 41st and Tailor, and like there's this Broncos store, and they're moving now. Unfortunately, probably for the same reason, like pushing everybody up and whatever. Like same thing, but like our whole staff owns so much Broncos gear right now, and like half of them are Broncos fans. I'm like, what? I'm like, they come back with all this gear, and I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, we just met the most amazing people across the street, and like it was real important for us to like we're going to every like town neighborhood meeting, and like it wasn't like to exploit it or take advantage of it. It was literally like we have to tread lightly and respect. And I knew what respect looked like just because of the history of Erica's, my wife's, family coming over here from Wales, and I knew what this neighborhood represented. I had never imagined being back in this neighborhood, and it's like you got to go to Rhino, you got to go to Highlands, got to go to this, and like you think it's again a great location, but I felt like and I worked on the Source restaurant. I thought we were going to the Source Hotel for a long time, and big ups to Lon Shia too for just building a beautiful restaurant there. But I worked on that project for a while, and I was kind of like I didn't know if I would want to do a sit-down restaurant again. Cart Driver was like awesome. I was in a good spot. That didn't work out, but like here I am, and we have an awesome landlord, Paul Timorello, who has Family Jones and owns the Linger building with Justin Cucci. And he came to us and he's like, I've got this building. And I was like, dude, I'm kind of working on something at the Source Hotel. I don't, I'm kind of good right now. He's like, just come take a look at it, And I had like recently in the last couple of years, as I was kind of thinking about this idea of stick food, I like went to Hong Kong and worked at this place called Yardbird. Huge, amazing restaurant group. They have 3 restaurants there, but Yardbird is like. I feel
like I've heard that name before.
Yeah, I mean, there's one in the United States, and they're opening in L.A. under new name and new branding. I don't know if I'm at liberty to launch that name. I'm just going to go with it. But they just came out with a book called Chicken and Charcoal. Okay. Such a good book.